going to be Proverbs 12. Proverbs 12. And I'm going to read the chapter and we'll get after it here. So verse 1, whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is senseless. Or one translation says stupid. Yeah. We've got some things to say about that. Verse 2, a good man will obtain favor from the Lord, but a man of evil schemes he will condemn. A man will not be established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous will not be shaken. An excellent wife is a crown to her husband, but she who causes shame is like rottenness to his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are just, but the guidance of the wicked is deceitful. The words of the wicked lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright will deliver them. The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. The mouth of, a man will be praised according to his insight, but one of perverse heart will be despised. Better is he who is lightly esteemed and has a servant than he who honors himself and lacks bread. A righteous man knows the value of life, the value of the life of his animal, but even the compassion of the wicked is cruel. He who cultivates his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who pursues empty things lacks a heart of wisdom. The wicked man desires a stronghold of evil men, but the root of the righteous gives fruit. The snare of the evil man is in the transgression of his lips, but the righteous man will come out from distress. A man will be satisfied with good by the fruit of his mouth, and the good deed of a man's hands will return to him. The way of an ignorant fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man is he who listens to counsel. An ignorant fool's anger is known at once, but a prudent man conceals disgrace. He who breathes out truth declares what is right, but a false witness deceit. There is one who speaks rashly, like the thrusts of a sword, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Truthful lips will be established forever, but a lying tongue is only for a moment. Deceit is in the heart of those who devise evil, but counselors of peace have gladness. No misfortune befalls the righteous, but the wicked are filled with calamity. Lying lips are an abomination to Yahweh, but doers of faithfulness are his delight. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims folly. The hand of the diligent will rule, but the slack hand will be put to forced labor. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes it glad. The righteous is a guide to his neighbor, but the way of the wicked makes them wander about. A slack-handed man does not roast his prey, but the wealth of a man is precious for the diligent. In the path of righteousness is life, and in his pathway there is no death. So, I'm not going to give a whole lot of intro today. This is, and will be for the foreseeable future, kind of the way the book of Proverbs goes. There's just going to be a smattering about of wise sayings. There is, however, one emphasis today, several verses that deal with the lips, the tongue, those kinds of things, in which we've talked about before. We'll talk about again today. But before we do that, let's just start kind of at the top at verse 1 and talk about this issue of discipline. I'm going to read the verse 1. Whoever loves discipline loves knowledge, but he who hates reproof is senseless or stupid or a moron or an idiot or whatever derogatory term you want to put in there. Okay, so verse 1 implies that the man who is self-disciplined knows something. Notice it says he loves discipline and he loves knowledge. The implication doesn't specifically say self-discipline, but I think that's implied. The guy who is self-disciplined, if his life is characterized by self-discipline, he knows something. And the question is what does he know? He knows not. He has knowledge. What knowledge does he possess? Most of us, or at least some of us, are familiar with what Jocko Willink says. What does Jocko say about discipline?
Freedom.
Discipline equals freedom. And I think Jocko, while is certainly not a believer and not Orthodox or anything like that, he's right about that. He's probably our culture's subject matter expert on that. And a lot of people follow Jocko because, he's Jocko. He's a former Navy SEAL guy, and everybody and he talks the way he talks. Yeah. That's Alex Jones. Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah. A big difference. Yeah. We will do well to remember that self-discipline is part of the fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5. So the fruit, by the way, it's fruit, not fruits. Even though there's multiple things listed, it's all considered one fruit. It's considered different facets of the same diamond, different parts of the same piece of fruit. What's the fruit of the Spirit, or the result? Let me say it a different way. The result of the indwelling of the Holy Spirit in somebody, the evidence for that is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Self-control, or another way of saying that would be discipline. Self-control. Self-control is part of the fruit of the Spirit. And so we recognize that this is something that God does. In other words, it's the evidence of the presence of our salvation. And consequently, the indwelling of the Spirit is one of the characteristics of self-discipline. The goal of discipline that comes from the outside is to teach the recipient to love self-discipline. I'm going to say that again. The goal of outside discipline is to teach the recipient to love self-discipline. And I think this is one of the goals of parenting, that we do well to remember that we're raising adults, not raising kids. Not raising kids, we're raising adults. And we must instill discipline in them when they are young, and it will serve them well later in life. Proverbs will say in another place, a man who doesn't discipline his son hates his son. Because what are you doing if you don't discipline your kids? What are you doing? What are you setting them up for? Failure. Okay. The idea that this is not my notes, and here we go off script, but people make monsters all the time of their children by spoiling them, by not putting the screws to them. Okay, this whole my daughter's a princess crap, right, is just that. Stop it. Just stop it. She's not a princess. And God help the poor soul who has to marry that girl. Could you imagine? I mean, think about that for a second, man. Really?
You'll never be good enough.
Oh my gosh. She has been taught her entire life to lean into her selfishness. Stop it. For God's sake, stop it. It's ridiculous. It's this Walt Disney BS stuff, and obviously I'm pretty passionate about that.
Well, what better way to show how much you love them than to be, concerned with their future?
Yes.
Being a little bit hard on them, and then
you're exactly
also
right.
Supporting their emotions and supporting their.
Yeah, that does.
It's kind of a phony, easy way to love them. To just.
It's not true love. It's not true love. It's that when you. What is love? Love is doing what is best for people. Doing what is best for them. Is it best for your daughter to teach her to lean into her selfishness? No. That doesn't mean that what she wants and thinks and stuff is is unimportant, and that you don't need to teach your daughter, date your daughter, do all that kind of stuff, right? But also you need to instill a sense of, and we're focusing on daughters here, the same is true for sons. Like, sons need to be, we've got a bunch of boys running around that need to be taught how to be men, who need discipline. They need this. The goal of this, and it'll serve them well. It'll serve them well later in life. If they learn this when they're young, learn it when they're little. And for us, our kids, we just decided, like, this was a huge deal for us. You are responsible for you. Our kids have always woken themselves up. We don't wake them up. We bought them alarm clocks when they were little. They had to plan ahead for the next day. Our school is set up where they have responsibilities. We would check up on them and stuff like that. We were going to raise disciplined kids. Our kids, we didn't do a whole lot of sugar and stuff like that. And Jet to this day will still regulate his sugar intake because it makes him feel bad. I can remember him going to birthday parties and being like, yeah, I'm not eating any more cake. no more soda, right? Because I would just feel bad and stuff like that. They washed their own clothes from the time they were, I don't know what, very young. Like old enough, like small enough that they had to have a stool to get to the washing machine. And if I came in there to wash my clothes and their stuff was in the washing machine, it was a bad day. Okay? I charge them money. That's the other thing, money. We taught them money. From the time they were 13, they had their own bank account. Before that, they had their own money. Dad did not buy lollipops. I didn't buy anything. I mean, I was kind of hard-ass about this stuff. But why was I this way? It wasn't because I was just trying to be a jerk. Right? And it's not like there was no affection. We had a ton of fun, okay? We would have Friday night dance night. We would, jump off the roof and have some adventures and, understand there's time and place, right? It's not like we didn't, we had a mud truck. We blew the engine up in it. I mean, we did all kinds of fun stuff, right? I'm just focusing on the discipline part because in our society, it's been just completely done away with. You see it in church, you see the way kids act, you see it anywhere you go. It's just this whole thing because parents aren't loving their kids well. Loving your kids does not mean giving them all the things that you didn't have. Let's say that again. Loving your kids doesn't mean giving them all the things that you didn't have. Loving them means teaching them to love what's lovely. That's discipline. We instill discipline in them when they're young, and that'll serve them later on. You can always tell people who have never been taught to say no to themselves. They've never had anyone say no to them, and they've never told themselves no about anything. They just give in to whatever they want to do. We ourselves also, obviously, must be characterized by discipline. What discipline is, what is discipline other than saying no to certain things, to certain desires, the curbing of our will away from certain behaviors and thoughts, and directing our actions to intentional things. It really comes down to deciding what matters. We would call those values. Values are just a word to describe the phenomenon of listing the things that matter. For us, we said, love God, love people, love God, think for yourself, take care of your business, so that you can help those who can't help themselves. Those are kind of the four big values that we were trying to instill in them. Some areas include, as far as discipline goes, things that you want to pay attention to. Your thought life is a big one, where the head goes. It's a modern proverb. We know this one. Where the head goes, the body follows. What you think about is what you will be about. What you're constantly putting in your head, that's that whole trash in, trash out, good in, good out kind of thing. Diet, exercise, words, dress, speech, habits, work ethic, study. What am I forgetting?
Watching, listening.
Watching, listening.
What you're watching, what you're listening to.
Yeah. Paying attention to what you're consuming. Content. Yeah. So the second half of verse 1 gives us the other side of the coin. The man who hates reproof is stupid. Don't you like it when the Bible calls people names? I love that. That guy's a moron, right? He's an idiot. He's stupid. Reproof. Go ahead.
It's not just calling other people that too. It's also pointed, directed.
Yeah, well, it's convicting of us, right? If I hate reproof, what is reproof? Well, I looked that up, and the span of what the word can mean is kind of interesting, and I found it kind of cutting. Reproof could also be termed criticism. A man who hates criticism is stupid. A man who hates correction is stupid. A man who hates blame, it's not my fault. Oh yeah, it is your fault. It's my fault. A man who hates accusation. If my immediate response to any kind of controversy or somebody coming at me about something is to deflect, what does it say about me? It says I'm stupid. The man who hates this, who hates correction, who hates criticism, is dull and is a dullard. He's done. Because those things can help you. If somebody points something out in me that's not right, that's not good, and I suppress that or deflect from that, what am I doing? I'm refusing to grow. I've got a problem here. I've got some kind of cancer, and I'm not treating it, if you want to think about it that way. The man who is stupid, he's also most likely insecure. It's a psychological condition where he's threatened by any kind of criticism instead of considering who it's coming from and considering the criticism. And you do need to do both. And let me just say this. Just because somebody is an unqualified critic doesn't make their criticism wrong. Do you need to consider the source? Yes, absolutely. You need to consider the source. And you also need to consider the content. Because God can even speak out of the mouths of asses. He has done it before. He probably continues to do so. Okay? It's a thing. And so just because that guy may be horribly guilty of something far worse doesn't mean that we shouldn't be mature enough to consider the content of what's being said. The guy who is threatened instead of seeking to be better, he's consumed by his appetites and he can't see things any other way. Some people are so foolish that they think that they know everything, and the irony is that they are know-it-all, know-nothings. Know-it-all, know nothings. Like we have people that in our society, we call them know-it-alls. And we call them that because they think they know everything and they are actually unskilled. They actually don't know anything. I'm not going to name names. I really would love to. Their personality of intuition is to their ruin. Some people are particularly susceptible to this because of how kind of they're internally wired. If you do a personality test and you score high on intuition, here's the thing. Most things about us, there are what our strengths are, there are also associated weaknesses. Intuition is great if that intuition is tuned. But if that intuition is not tuned and it's somebody that just runs amok, then what happens? They don't listen to anybody. Their personality is to their ruin. Stupid. They immediately dismiss anybody else. They find any reason to dismiss somebody, whether it's their age, their background, the car they drive, their vocation, the amount of money they make or don't make. Verse 15 is also helpful in this regard. If you look over at verse 15, it says, "The way of an arrogant fool is right in his own eyes." No one can tell him anything. His mind is made up. He thinks that he is a subject matter expert on everything, even crap that he knows nothing about. The way of the ignorant fool is right in his own eyes. Does somebody have another translation on that?
Mine says the way of a fool seems right to him.
Yeah. His intuition always seems right. He never distrusts himself. He has full confidence in his own ideas without any outside interaction. Now, I'm hammering down on this one particular. There is a flip side to this, okay, where you have some people that get into the analysis paralysis and too much, that kind of thing. But this is the guy. He tends to be arrogant. He tends to be quick. He makes snap judgments, and he thinks he's right all the time. And the problem is that he has confirmation bias. It may be that he's been right about something, and so he extrapolates that into everything, even things he knows nothing about. You ask that guy about computer programming, and he doesn't even know what BASIC is, much less Java or C++, and he has an opinion about it. In fact, his opinion is that nerds are stupid. I'm trying to hold my tongue on some of this. The wise man let me say it this way. Going back to the fool for a second. He doesn't know anything, but he claims to be an expert. Or acts like one. Maybe he doesn't claim it, but he at least acts like it. A wise man is he who listens to counsel. Notice the second half of verse 15. What does the wise guy do? What does the man of wisdom do?
Listens to advice.
He listens. Don't be too quick to dismiss the ideas of others. Consider the source, consider the information, weigh it out. This too is a discipline that must be developed and practiced. You see how the connection with this? There's discipline to saying, I'm going to make it a point to listen to what other people say. Additionally, if a person can't make themselves do things that they don't want to do, they will forever be an immature boy. They'll forever be an immature boy who screams and kicks and cries when they don't get their way and blames God. What? If you can't say no to yourself and curb your will and are constantly led by your heart or the wind or whatever, you will be poor, unestablished, and childish.
It's a bad salami sandwich, man.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's being led by your heart.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. Just follow your heart. Just follow your dreams. We'll talk about that here in a minute. If you can't say no to yourself and your will is constantly led by your heart or the wind or whatever, you will be poor, unestablished, and childish. Verse 2 reminds us, go back to verse 2, reminds us that righteousness leads to favor with God. So we're changing gears here. So we're kind of getting off the discipline horse for a second. I've talked about all that I want to say about that for now. Verse 2, what does verse 2 say? A good man will obtain favor from Yahweh, but a man of evil schemes he will condemn. This hints at something we'll talk about a little bit later, the idea of legacy and permanence. But that righteousness leads to favor with God. I'll just say this is an exciting verse to me. The idea that we can have favor with God based off of what we do and what we don't do. You got to be careful, right? We're not talking about legalism. We understand that our righteousness is rooted in the finished work of Christ on the cross, this subsequent being raised from the dead. However, you do understand that he has ascended on high and is ruling and reigning, and he commands his subjects to obey him. Let it be so. Let it be so. Obey him, and what happens? You will obtain favor with the Lord. Luke 2:52 says that Jesus grew in stature, means he got taller, and favor with God and men. It's a wild verse to think that Jesus somehow, as a human, progressed and moved forward. And I think that's a good pattern. You want to progress. You want to move forward. You want to grow in your favor with God. The eyes of the Lord roam to and fro throughout the earth to see a man whose heart is inclined toward him. Love that verse. The idea that God is actively looking for men whose hearts are right. And what does God want? I don't like saying what God wants to do, because God does what he wants to do. There is no difference between what he wants to do and what he does do. But how does he? What means does he use? He uses people. He uses us. And so I love this idea. A good man will obtain favor from the Lord. Man, I pray this a lot. I don't know. I think this is right. When I'm in the truck and I'm going to a meeting, I inevitably turn off whatever's going on, podcast, music, whatever, before I get there. Usually about 10 minutes before I get there, and I pray, Lord, I'm praying for favor. I'm praying for an acceptance. I'm praying for, and this is not some weird charismatic, health and wealth gospel kind of stuff. This is simply to say, Lord, don't let me say something stupid. Because I'm a master at eating shoe leather. I'm a master of sticking my foot in my mouth. I am way too good at saying dumb stuff and doing dumb things. And I'm like, Lord, don't keep me from doing that. And I'm ashamed to tell you, it reared its head here recently. I walked out to a location and said something about these guys drilling into a frack, and they were having a bad day. And that was exactly what had happened. And I did it. I was trying to joke around. I didn't read the room very well, and I said something stupid, and I ended up just basically leaving. I did. I just left. I ended up saying, "Man, guys, I'm sorry. I wasn't coming out here to pour salt in the wound." These guys. This guy. They were so upset. The company man was afraid he was going to get fired over it. He was afraid he was going to lose his job, and by my stupid words, not reading the room, not understanding what was going on, I said something dumb. And so I'm telling you this to tell you that I don't have this all figured out, but I'm trying to, and I'm saying, man, Lord, give me favor, help me to have words of wisdom and truth and faith and goodness when I go out here and see these guys, when I go into these meetings, whether they be business meetings or whatever the case may be. Righteousness leads to favor with God. Of course, our standing with God is rooted in the finished work of Christ. I've already said that. The evil man will be condemned. Look at the second half of verse 2. But a man of evil schemes, he, being God, will what? Condemn. Evil schemes. These guys, these evil chess players, these guys who are always, working the angles, doing this thing, laying plans, all this stuff. Excuse me. I take some sense of respite in this verse, knowing that God will judge evil and evil men. Deuteronomy 32, 35, Romans 12 talk to us about, it says, don't take vengeance for yourself, because vengeance is mine, declares the Lord. I take a little bit of comfort in that I don't have to make things right all the time, that He's ultimately going to settle accounts. And it keeps me from having to walk around punching people in the face for, doing stuff. Verse 3 and verse 7, let's look at these. Verse 3 and verse 7 are connected. I'm going to read this. A man will not be established by wickedness, but the root of the righteous will not be shaken. Verse 7, the wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous will stand. What's the reoccurring theme there, guys?
Sustainability, I guess, just being rooted.
Yeah, sustainability. I characterize it as permanence, staying power. You said sustainability, but yeah, I think that's the idea of permanence. The righteous, he has a root that won't be shaken. First of all, he has a root.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are just blown by the wind. They're here, they're there. There's a pretty serious cost to being transient. Physically, like moving around all the time, like just the cost of moving itself is hard, but you're constantly starting over. You're never getting established. And some people don't understand this. And in our modern, job hopping kind of thing, I understand there's a time and a place to move, and there's a time and a place to change jobs or whatever. And I'm not saying that should never be the case. But the idea of permanence, that righteousness in and of itself is the root. The man who is righteous, what happens? He has a root that won't be shaken. The root is deep and it holds. The house of the righteous will stand. That's the second half of verse 7 there. His house, it stands, it stays. It's not blown over by the storm or whatever. But the wicked has a temporary existence. Let this serve both as a motive for the upright and the disciplined living, while a deflector of evil and undisciplined frivolity. Right? The idea of being a boy and just, flip-flopping around and, being carefree and all that kind of stuff. What does it lead to? It leads to poverty. It leads to being unestablished. It leads to being uprooted. It leads to temporariness. And some of you are kind of nodding your head. You know what I'm talking to here. Verse 4. I'm moving quick through some of these, and these are, again, not... You will see some connections between these. I'm going to trust that the Spirit will kind of put those things together for you, and I don't have to connect all the dots on this. But verse 4, I love this one. And there are multiple verses about husbands and wives, particularly wives, throughout the book of Proverbs. I just want to mention this one. Verse 4, an excellent wife, what is she?
husband's crown.
Yeah, she's a crown to her husband. That's a beautiful picture, isn't it? Right, man. I love this lady. She's great. Like I'm happy to be around her. We all know, guys, that is not the case.
Too many of them.
Yeah, this is a little crass, but the old joke is, why are divorces so expensive? Because they're worth it, right? That's the joke, right? That guys say, they're like, I'm ready to get rid of this one, right? And then the idea behind that, built into that, is the idea that she's killing me, right? She's killing me, and I'm so ready to be done that I will pay whatever needs to be paid to make her go away. That's the opposite of what this verse is saying. That an excellent wife, what is she? She's a crown. She's wonderful. Like, I like to talk about her. I'll just tell you, I married that girl because I liked her. And I still want to stay married to her, right? She is wonderful. And if you get me going, and I'm not going to do this too much because we've all, you just sound like this doting guy. But yeah, my wife's better than everybody's wife, right? And if you don't think that about your wife, then there's something wrong, right? Because that's who God put you with. Yeah, she's wicked, crazy, smart. She loves people. She sees people for how they really are. She's not naive at all. She genuinely sees people in all their wickedness and sinfulness and loves them anyway. She is wild, crazy, strong, and smart. And she loves me. And by loves me, I mean she has my best interest. She tries to get me to do the right thing, not the wrong thing. She's pushing me to be a better man. If you know that great line from, I keep wanting to say as good as it gets, but it's good as it gets. Jack Nicholson gives this line to, what's the actress in there? What's her name? I'll think of it here in a minute anyway, but she's like, give me a compliment. And he says, you make me want to be a better man. It's a great line. It's a great line. She's like, that's the best compliment anybody's ever given me. That's where I'm at, right? An excellent wife, verse 4, is a crown to her husband. But she who causes shame, rottenness to his bones. There's the divorce is worth it kind of situation. Let me say it this way. You got a couple of single guys, choose well. Choose well. How do you choose well? Number one, this is Cody speaking. I don't have a verse to back this up. I have some implications of verses to back this up. Can you lead her? Can she be led? I'm going to overstate this a little bit. I don't really think it matters so much what she looks like. Stop focusing on that. Focus on character. Focus on character, because you're going to have to live with that character for the rest of your life. Focus on character. And some people say, well, if you're not attracted, I'm not, get past that. Focus on character. Can she be led? And can you lead? Will you lead? Lead her. Do your job. Okay? Expose her to the things of God, godly older women, the word itself, and be the leader, and teach her to help you as God designed. That's the way it's supposed to go. A good wife, what is she? She's a crown to her husband. Verse 9. Again, these are just kind of a sprinkling of different things. Better is he who is lightly esteemed and has a servant. So you get the picture there. People don't think that much about him, but what? He's got enough money to have somebody working for him, right? Then he who honors himself and doesn't have anything to eat. So you got the picture there of a guy who's humble and a guy who's arrogant and a blowhard. You see the dichotomy there? The blowhard is always telling people how successful he is when he actually has not a lot. And there's always somebody, by the way, that has more, right? So that's a fool's errand, that comparison game. Don't be a self-promoter. Don't be a self-promoter, is what I wrote out to the side for my daughter on this one. Don't be the guy who honors himself, the guy who's always talking about what he's done. Don't be a self-promoter. Don't be a braggart with nothing. Verse 11. He who cultivates his land will be satisfied with bread, but he who pursues empty things lacks a heart of wisdom. What are empty things that men pursue?
Fantasies.
Ah, yes. Talk to me about that. You're exactly right. That's exactly what the text is talking about. It says fantasies. Okay. You cheated. Yeah. What's a fantasy? A fantasy is make-believe. Yeah, it's something that's not real. Fairy tales. I love that line from the George Strait song, I don't chase crazy dreams. I don't chase crazy dreams. We used to run this music venue, and we had all these kids that would come through there, and they all wanted to be rock stars, you know. And I said, you want to know how to be a rock star? There is a formula to this. Here's how it works. Practice like you think you're going to die, and then tour. Put 200,000 miles on a Ford van. Doesn't have to be Ford, but you know, if you love the Lord, you drive a Ford. So, put 200,000 miles on a Ford van, touring every little hole in the wall place, and give away your music and sell merch, and you might make it. That's the formula. Okay, into today's music industry. Okay, here's the thing. It's simple. It's just hard. And you know what? People, they think that because they're princesses and because they've pursued their dreams and they think that because they are, quote, passionate about it, that somehow somebody gives a crap. No one cares that you're passionate about fill in the blank. I had a guy tell me one time, he was telling me about all these deer that he'd killed in northern Louisiana. Okay. And he does, like stabbed them or something. It was something weird, like he was like getting right up on them, and, yeah, he's unemployed now. This guy made millions of dollars and went through 3 marriages and no one's heard from him in like 4 years. Why? He's pursuing crazy dreams, pursuing fantasies, pursuing things. Now, he actually made some of that happen. That doesn't mean that you can't have things that you're working towards that are, but you need to have a plan. It doesn't just... Don't think that this is not field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come kind of thing. That's not how it works. What does it say? What does verse 11 say to do? He who does what? Works, cultivates what? His land will be satisfied with bread. Work the land that you got. Do what's in front of you. Be faithful. Jesus will say it this way. He who is faithful with a few things will be given more things. But the guy who's not faithful with what he has, even what he has, will be taken away from him and given to somebody else. Do with what you have. Be faithful in that. Don't crazy dreams. Plow your land. Do your job. Be diligent. Be mindful. Stop looking for shortcuts. This one drives me nuts. Put your hand to the plow and don't look back. Stop pursuing empty things. That doesn't mean you shouldn't look for good land to plow. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't look for opportunities. Those are called opportunities, good land. However, the idea that you can get there easily without significant investment and effort is foolish boyism. Plow your land. Do what's in front of you. Quit trying to take shortcuts. There are no any get-rich-quick scheme is fantasy. It's a foolish lie, right? That doesn't mean there's not money out there to be made. You can go make it, but it's not without work. It's not without some intelligence. It's not without some things. Plow your land. Now, I think this will kind of close us out. Verses. Let me skip ahead to verse 25, and then I'll come back to this other one. Verse 25, anxiety in a man's heart weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. Anxiety weighs it down, but a good word makes it glad. You want to be the kind of guy in the latter part of this verse. Be an encourager, not a manipulator. Most people use flattery as a manipulation technique. They say good things about people to get something out of them. Okay? There's a difference between that and genuine biblical encouragement and recognition, giving credit where credit's due. Recognizing people for their value and calling that out is a good thing. You want to reward good behavior and be the rock that people need when they are drifting or worried. You want your words to be life-giving. The Bible talks about, we're going to get to, well, I'll just get to it now. Verse 18, there's one who speaks rashly like the thrusts of a sword, right? These people that are just, blabbering on and saying stuff, it's killing people. It's like thrusts of a sword. But the flip side of that, verse 25, a good word makes this guy's heart glad. There are some people who are beat down, discouraged. What do they need? They need somebody to tell them to trust the Lord. They need somebody to put their arm around them and say, hey man, come on, let's go. Let's do this. Anxiety weighs a man's heart down. The dread of something is almost always worse than the actual experience. The dread of something is almost always worse than the actual experience. So stop worrying about it. Get on with it. Speak truth to yourself. Surround yourself with people who also direct you in that fashion. Lastly, let's talk about the mouth, the lips, the tongue. Okay, there are several verses here that deal with this concept. So verses, let me see here, let me get it. 6, 13, 14, 17, 18, 19, 22, and 23 all deal with the mouth. I'm going to read, let's just look here in verses 6, starting in verse 16. I'm going to read like 16 through 23. Okay. By the way, 16 and 23 are brackets. I'll read them first and then we'll read the stuff inside of them. An ignorant fool's anger is shown at once, but a prudent man conceals disgrace. Verse 23. A prudent man conceals knowledge, but the heart of fools proclaims folly. What two things do you see in those two verses? It's repeated in both verses. What does a fool do?
Spouts off.
Yeah.
Proclaims folly.
Yeah, he spouts off. He talks quickly. He doesn't consider his audience. He doesn't consider his circumstances, right? He just blabs. An ignorant fool's anger, when he's upset about something, his emotions, what does it say? They are what? What does it say? Verse 16a. Known at once. Immediately, you know this guy. There's no disguising his emotions. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. It's on his face. It's just right there for everybody to see. Verse 23, the heart of fools proclaims folly. Just blah, 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 blah. Always yipping and yapping and talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. He proclaims folly. He does not have the ability. He has no filter. Some people, here's what's ironic. In our culture today, here's how demented and backwards we are. We actually think this is a good thing now. We think it's a good thing when somebody's unfiltered. Well, they're just being authentic. Well, that's stupid. Okay? Especially when your heart is evil. They're just being unfiltered. There is a time and a place for strong, direct speech. There absolutely is. 100%. But to walk around like the thrusts of a sword, constantly slashing and trashing everything, just being that guy, it's unfiltered, that guy's a fool. When he speaks, the first thing he speaks the first thing that comes into his head. First thing that comes into his head is what comes out of his mouth, and he's a moron. His thoughts are known at once, verse 16. There is something to be said here about anger specifically. When a man cannot contain his disdain, but spews it out all around all the time for everyone to see, he shows himself to be a fool. Those who are constantly irritated at traffic. Hey, you know there's traffic. You know that there's morons at the grocery store. Okay, there's morons on the road. There's morons at the grocery store. I saw them yesterday. Okay, like it. Yeah, I right now I could be that guy and tell you about my whole big long experience that was completely ridiculous. Right? We've all have those experiences. Every single one of us. We could be here all day.
You're not unique.
No, you're not unique. And the fact that I'm irritated by that and that I let that somehow affect my mood. What that has more to say about me than it does them. What does that say about me? It says that I'm immature. It says that I'm too easily upset. And when I can't contain that, I can't just deal with that as part of life. Can I change the checkout system at Walmart? No. Can I change the traffic patterns on Loop 250 or 285? Or, I mean, we could just go down the list of roads that need, no. I mean, and if you can, you have to go to those symposiums, and, it's a big, long process, right? It's just not the way the life works. And to get constantly frustrated by that and to spew that on everybody all the time, it's unwise. It's stupid. Those who are constantly irritated by life, particularly traffic, are immature. Yes, there's traffic. There will always be traffic. Yes, the grocery store is crowded on Saturday and inefficient. You know this. People are stupid and they are everywhere. You know this. Why are you frustrated by it? Stop complaining. And I would reference the message yesterday even on that. A prudent or wise man, however, what does he do? What does it say he do? He does. What does it say he do? What does it say he does?
Ignores an insult and conceals knowledge.
Ignores an insult. Somebody says something to him. What does he do?
Just bounces it off.
Don't bother him. He'll consider it. And does he take personal offense to it and get all butthurt and pissed off and, No, what does he do? He knows who he is. He knows what he's about. He's already thought about that. He ignores an insult. He, how's mine said here? A prudent man conceals disgrace. He just lets it go. It's water off a duck's back. He knows where he's going. He knows what's happening. What's the other thing that he does? Verse 23.
This one says conceals knowledge.
Yeah.
It's interesting. You said conceals disgrace on the.
Yeah. Mine has the same word on both. The wise man conceals. What does it mean to conceal something?
Don't show it.
Not show it, hide it, hold it back, right? He keeps, let me say it another way. Compare and contrast that to the fool. The fool immediately says whatever comes into his mind. The wise man, what does he do?
Shut up.
He keeps it to himself. He knows how to hold his tongue. The guy who can't hold his tongue, what does it say about him? He's immature. He's boyish. So the wise man holds some things to himself. Before you spew some crap out your word hole, I wrote this, you do well to stop and consider some things. A prudent man conceals knowledge. Wise men tend to be a little cagey about some things. Don't be cagey for the sake of being mysterious and whatever. Share information as much as you can for people that you can help it. Okay, if you can help people, help them, right? Use your words. They're a fountain of life, right? We've read that verse. Do that. If you have things that can help people, help them. But don't immediately just start telling everybody how great you are or your successes. Don't be a slick salesman. Wise men are carefully considerate of what they say and how it is said. They don't talk about their successes to everyone who will listen. They don't run the highlight reel of their adventures and accomplishments quickly. The heart of fools proclaims folly. Unwise men are blowhards, always looking for an audience to tell their stories to. I was very recently in an environment where I made some introductions to a couple of guys, and within a very short amount of time, within a few minutes, one of the guys was already telling the other guys how successful he was and how much money he had and, how he was going to do this and do that. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. You are showing your insecurity and your boyishness. And it doesn't matter how successful you are. Even if you got millions of dollars. You know who cares? You know who's impressed by that? Losers. Other boys. You're just playing a boys game. That's a boys game. Right? It's a pecker measuring contest. That's what you're doing. Right? Nobody cares. I mean, there are immature guys that care, but big deal. Right? This whole pecking order thing, this whole puffing your chest out and rooster strutting, don't be that guy. And I do understand when you have a measure of success and you're happy about it and you want to share that with people, that's one thing, okay? But even then, I would tell you, be careful. Be careful. Because lest you be seen as a braggart, lest you be seen as somebody like that. Keep some things to yourself. Watch your tongue. Put a filter on. The conclusion, I think, is this. Number one, be disciplined. Be disciplined. And this applies, obviously, to the mouth, to what you say and what you don't say. Be disciplined with your life. Live a life of discipline. I don't want us to, be self-flagellating and, constantly just beating up on ourselves. We can all do better in areas of discipline. Okay, I'm not saying that that's not where it's at. But honestly, look at your life and you want to say, if people who didn't know me looked at me and examined my life, would they consider me a disciplined man who has standards and responsibilities and takes care of business? Be disciplined. Number two, be a man of life-giving words focused on God and others. Be an encourager. Be somebody that brings life about people, and let that be your legacy. Be established in that. Remember, the righteous man, he has a deep root. He's not moved. And when he's gone, people are not glad he's gone. They wished he was still around. Let that be your legacy. Questions, comments, input? Father, we commit ourselves to you anew and afresh today. We invite your Spirit to lead and to teach us. And we pray that you'd find us faithful servants. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.